My cousin Emma's wedding was meant to be her big day, but it turned into the night my entire family learned who they'd really been mocking for 3 years. I sat at the corner table, the one reserved for family embarrassments, watching Derek adjust his Armani tie for the 100th time while he bragged to anyone within earshot about his latest achievement. My stomach churned with that familiar cocktail of dread and barely contained rage that poisoned every family gathering. The same knot that had lived in my chest since the day I chose love over their approval. Across the room, I caught Mom whispering to Aunt Patricia, both of them glancing our way with that look of pity I knew too well. "Such a shame," I could almost hear her saying. "Sophia had so much potential before she threw it all away on that mechanic." Tom squeezed my hand under the table, his calloused fingers warm against mine. Those hands that my family dismissed as dirty had touched more wealth than they could imagine. The irony would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. "Quick favor before we move on. Over 90% of people watching right now haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying this story, tap that like button and hit subscribe. It's completely free, and it helps this channel reach more amazing listeners like you. Already subscribed? You're the best. Thank you so much. Now, let's get back to it." "You ready for this?" he whispered, glancing at the notification lighting up both our phones simultaneously. I wasn't ready. After 3 years of systematic humiliation, 3 years of watching my family treat the man I loved like he was beneath their shoes, I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready. But tonight was different. Tonight, the performance ended. The humiliation was about to reach its crescendo, but first, it was about to get much, much worse. Derek spotted us from across the room like a predator catching scent of wounded prey. I watched him excuse himself from the cluster of cousins he'd been impressing, that familiar gleam of malicious entertainment lighting up his eyes. He'd been building up to this all evening. I could tell by the way he kept glancing over, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "So you're still dating the guy who smells like oil?" Derek announced as he approached our table, his voice pitched loud enough for half the reception to hear. Each word was carefully calculated, delivered with that particular blend of amusement and superiority that made my jaw clench so hard it ached. The conversations at nearby tables stuttered and died. Heads turned. The spotlight was exactly where Derek wanted it. I forced a smile that felt like swallowing glass. "Hello, Derek." "Tommy!" He clapped Tom on the shoulder hard enough to slosh wine from nearby glasses, the impact echoing through the reception hall. His voice boomed with false friendship that fooled no one. "How's the, what do you call it, automotive repair business?" He made exaggerated air quotes, grinning like he'd just delivered the world's cleverest joke. Several cousins snickered from their tables. My cheeks burned with familiar shame, that hot flush of humiliation I'd learned to swallow down. Tom's grip on my hand tightened imperceptibly, but his voice stayed level. "It's going well. Thanks for asking." "Well, you know what they say about small dreams," Derek laughed, settling into the chair across from us uninvited. He spread his arms wide, commanding the space like he owned it. "Some people aim for the stars, others change oil filters." More laughter from the audience he'd gathered. I could feel their eyes on us like spotlights, some curious, others pitying, all entertained by our discomfort. "Speaking of big dreams," Derek continued, his chest puffing with pride, "guess who just got waitlisted for the most exclusive automotive network in the country?" My blood went cold. Here it comes. The speech I'd been dreading all evening. "The Private Luxury Car Owner Network," Derek announced, savoring each word like fine wine. "Only verified owners of vehicles worth $200,000 and up. Lamborghinis, Ferraris, McLarens, Bugattis. You know, the kind of cars you'll never touch unless you're changing their oil." He paused for effect, scanning the growing audience of relatives who'd started gravitating toward our table like vultures sensing a meal. "The invitation alone is worth more than most people's annual salary," Derek continued, pulling out his phone to show the pristine white envelope he'd photographed. See this? This little piece of paper gives me access to billionaire car collectors, Formula One drivers, celebrities with private collections, worth more than small countries. Aunt Margaret leaned in closer. How exclusive is it, really? Derek's grin turned predatory. Put it this way. There are currently 12,000 members worldwide. The waitlist has over 80,000 applications. People spend years trying to get in. Tech CEOs, hedge fund managers, oil executives, and little old me from suburban Connecticut made the cut. He turned back to Tom with mock sympathy. But hey, Tommy, I'm sure you'll find your people somewhere. Maybe there's a Jiffy Lube enthusiast group on Facebook. The table erupted in laughter. Even some guests from other tables were chuckling now. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor and never resurface. But tonight was different. Tonight, the shame belonged to someone else. Dad materialized beside Derek like he'd been summoned by the scent of opportunity to lecture me. At 62, Richard Thompson still commanded rooms with his presence, silver-haired, sharp-suited, every inch the successful real estate developer who'd built Thompson properties from nothing. The man who'd taught me that worth was measured in profit margins and quarterly reports. Though I do worry about Sophia wasting her prime years on someone with such limited prospects, he began, his voice carrying that disappointed tone I'd heard since childhood. The words hit like physical blows. I'd heard variations of this speech at every family event for 3 years, but tonight each word felt sharper, more deliberate. Around us, conversations died as relatives tuned into the entertainment. Dad, please don't... No, I think this needs to be said. He interrupted, his voice rising with righteous conviction. Sophia, changing oil and rotating tires isn't a business, it's manual labor. You're basically dating a janitor who gets his hands dirty for minimum wage. Cousin Emma giggled into her wine glass from the head table. The bride herself, on her own wedding day, finding entertainment in my misery. At least janitors have benefits and steady hours, she called out, her wedding dress rustling as she leaned forward for a better view. Emma, Mom scolded, but she was fighting a smile, her hand pressed to her mouth to hide her amusement. I stared at my untouched plate, my appetite disappearing entirely. The salmon looked cold and gray, matching exactly how I felt inside. This was supposed to be Emma's special day, but somehow it had turned into another episode of Let's Destroy Sophia's Self-Worth, the family's favorite recurring show. Uncle Robert, Dad's brother and partner in the real estate business, decided to join the pile-on. I offered Tom a job last year, entry-level sales position, good salary, room for advancement, chance to learn a real profession. He shook his head sadly. He turned it down to keep playing in that garage. Because he likes getting his hands dirty, Derek added with a sneer. Some people have no ambition. Tom's thumb traced circles on my palm, our secret signal. Stay calm. Almost time. But staying calm felt impossible when my entire family was systematically dismantling the man I loved. I just don't understand what you see in him, Mom added, her voice loaded with that concerned tone that made everything worse. She'd perfected that voice over 34 years of my life, the voice that said she knew better, that I was making terrible choices, that she was disappointed but trying to be supportive. You're so smart, Sophia. Top of your class at Northwestern, internships at prestigious firms, offers from consulting companies. You could have had your pick of successful men. Doctors, lawyers, executives, men with retirement plans and health insurance. Instead, you're slumming it with someone who smells like motor oil and lives paycheck to paycheck. Mom! No, let me finish, she interrupted, her voice rising until it carried across half the reception hall. I'm embarrassed to tell my friends what you're doing with your life. When Patricia asks about my daughter, what am I supposed to say? Oh, Sophia, she's 34, unemployed, and living off her boyfriend who fixes cars in his garage. The humiliation was a living thing now, crawling up my throat and threatening to choke me. I could feel tears building behind my eyes, the familiar burn of shame that had become my constant companion at family gatherings. "You know what Patricia's daughter Sarah is doing?" Mom continued relentlessly. "She just made partner at her law firm. Partner, Sophia. At 32. She drives a BMW, owns a condo in Lincoln Park, travels to Europe twice a year. That's what success looks like." Derek leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the show. "You know what kills me? I'm about to join the most elite automotive community in the world. We're talking members who own car collections worth $50, $60 million. And my sister's boyfriend here probably thinks a Ferrari is something you order at an Italian restaurant." Laughter rippled through the nearby tables like a wave. Smartphones came out, discreetly recording what was clearly becoming the entertainment highlight of the reception. My face burned hot enough to melt steel. "I bet he's never even seen a real supercar up close," added Cousin Marcus, Derek's wingman in all family cruelty. "Unless you count the posters at the auto parts store." More laughter. Even the wedding photographer had stopped working to watch the spectacle. Tom cleared his throat quietly. "Actually, Derek, about that network—" "Oh, this should be good," Derek interrupted, his voice dripping with mockery. "Let me guess. You're going to tell me you know someone who knows someone? That you once changed the oil in a guy's Porsche, so now you're practically best friends?" The table erupted again. Someone, I think it was Uncle Robert, was laughing so hard he was wheezing. "No, seriously," Derek continued, riding the wave of laughter. "I'd love to hear how a small-town mechanic thinks he has connections to billionaire car collectors. This is better than the wedding entertainment." Tom started to speak again, but Derek cut him off with a dismissive wave. "Save it, Tommy. I've done my research on this network. These are people who buy cars that cost more than most people's houses. They're not looking for mechanic shop recommendations." The familiar knot in my stomach had grown into a full-blown tornado of humiliation and rage. For years, I'd watched my family dismiss the most genuine, talented man I'd ever known like he was dirt on their shoes. Years of swallowing my pride and pretending their words didn't cut me to pieces. But as I sat there, surrounded by the laughter and mockery of people who were supposed to love me, something shifted. The shame was still there. But underneath it, a different feeling was growing. Not quite confidence, not yet, but something harder. Something that felt like justice waiting to be served. The notification sound that changed everything chimed in the middle of their laughter. Ding! Both Tom's phone and mine lit up simultaneously with the distinctive sound of our app's priority notification system, a custom tone that sounded like a luxury car engine purring to life. Derek's eyes snapped to the familiar sound, his expression shifting from amusement to confusion to something that looked almost like recognition. "Wait," he said slowly, his voice losing its confident edge. "What was that?" The sound hung in the air like a gunshot. Derek's laughter died mid-breath, replaced by a look of dawning confusion that sent a chill through the assembled crowd. "That sound," Dad said, leaning forward with the intensity of a bloodhound catching a scent. "That's the private luxury car owner network notification sound. Derek played it for us last week when he got his wait list confirmation." Derek's face went pale, the color draining from his cheeks like someone had pulled a plug. "But how would you?" My phone lit up again with another notification, the distinctive premium sound that only verified platform owners heard, a double chime followed by the engine purr. Derek's eyes widened as he recognized the advanced notification tier, the one he'd researched obsessively but never heard in person. "There's no way," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the sudden silence that had fallen over our corner of the reception. "Let me see that." I held the device up, watching his face crumble in real time as he read the screen. "Urgent. Network capacity at 99%. Implement Waitlist Protocol 7. Founder approval required for new admissions. Active members, 12,437 pending applications, 87,324. Monthly revenue, $4.2 million. System admin. Derek's wine glass slipped from his fingers, shattering against his Italian leather shoes with a crash that seemed to echo through the entire reception hall. Red wine spread across the white tablecloth like blood. "Founder approval?" he whispered, his voice cracking on the words. "But that would mean—" Tom smiled for the first time all evening, not the polite, tolerant smile he'd been wearing like armor, but a genuine expression of satisfaction that transformed his entire face. "It means exactly what you think it means, Derek." Dad grabbed the phone from my hands with shaking fingers, his businessman's instincts kicking in as he tried to process what he was seeing. His face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror as the numbers registered. "This has to be fake," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "There's no way you two built—" "The private luxury car owner network," I finished quietly, my voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. "We didn't just build it, Dad. We own it." The reception hall fell silent except for the distant sound of the wedding band playing in the next room. I could hear Derek's breathing, shallow and panicked. Someone's chair creaked. A champagne glass clinked against a table. Mom's hand flew to her throat. "But you're unemployed," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You help him in his garage." "I coordinate our business from his garage," I corrected, standing slowly and feeling the weight of 3 years of humiliation lifting from my shoulders like steam rising from hot metal. The same garage where Tom restored a 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO for collector Marcus Wellington 3 years ago. Tom pulled out his phone, opening the app to reveal his admin dashboard. The screen showed a world map dotted with thousands of pins, each representing a verified member. Revenue charts, user analytics, a business empire disguised as a simple automotive app. Marcus was so impressed with Tom's work that he connected us to his entire network, I continued, my voice growing stronger with each word. That's when we realized these car enthusiasts needed a platform to connect privately, away from the general public and wannabe collectors. Derek made a sound like air escaping from a punctured tire. "Current verified members, 12,437, Tom said calmly, scrolling through screens of data with practiced ease. "Monthly revenue, $4.2 million. Waitlist applications, 87,324. He paused, his finger hovering over the screen with deliberate slowness. "Including Derek Thompson. Application submitted 6 months ago. Status, pending founder review." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Uncle Robert's champagne flute slipped from his nerveless fingers, exploding against the floor in a shower of crystal and Dom Perignon. I stood up slowly, feeling power flow through me like electricity through copper wire. 3 years of accumulated humiliation transformed into something harder, something that felt like justice finally arriving at the station. The entire reception was watching now, phones out, recording everything. Emma left her head table to come closer, her wedding dress trailing behind her. "You want to know what's funny, Derek?" My voice carried clearly across the silent room, each word precisely calibrated for maximum impact. "I've been personally reviewing your application for months." Derek's confident swagger had evaporated completely. He sat hunched in his chair like a deflated balloon, his Armani suit suddenly looking cheap and ill-fitting. "Your essay about deserving access to elite automotive circles was memorable," I continued. "Especially the part where you wrote about needing to network with serious collectors, not weekend hobbyists who think they understand automotive culture." His face went from pale to gray. "Of course, you had no idea you were writing that essay for the oily mechanic's unemployed girlfriend." Tom stood beside me, radiating the calm confidence of someone who'd never doubted his worth. He scrolled through his phone with unhurried precision. "You know what else is funny?" Tom said, his voice conversational. "Derek, you mentioned in your application that you own a 2019 Porsche 911. Retail value approximately $90,000. Derek nodded weakly. "That's cute," Tom continued. "Last month, I finished restoring a 1955 Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing for tech billionaire James Morrison. Sale price, $4.2 million. The month before that, I authenticated and restored a 1967 Shelby Cobra 427 for Hollywood producer David Chen. Insurance value, $6.8 million. Aunt Margaret's champagne flute joined the growing collection of broken glass on the floor. "The mechanic you've been mocking?" I gestured to Tom, feeling pride swell in my chest like a tide. "He's restored vehicles for 12 Fortune 500 CEOs, including the Bugatti La Voiture Noire that sold for $18.7 million. His client list includes 3 Academy Award winners, 2 tech titans you'd recognize from magazine covers, and the Crown Prince of Monaco." I pulled up our banking app, turning the screen toward the table full of slack-jawed relatives. "His restoration work commands fees between $500,000 and $2 million per project. He typically has a 6-month waiting list." Uncle Robert leaned forward, squinting at the screen like he was trying to solve a mathematical equation that didn't make sense. That can't be real." "And me?" I continued, my voice gaining strength with each revelation. "The unemployed loser dating beneath her station? I handle business development for a platform currently valued at $47 million. We have expansion deals pending in Dubai, Monaco, and Hong Kong. Our Series B funding round closes next month at a $75 million valuation." Dad's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, like a fish gasping for air. "You see, when you have access to the kind of wealth Tom works with regularly, you start to understand what these collectors really want," I explained, addressing the room like I was giving a business presentation. "They don't want to join existing car clubs with middle management types showing off their base model Porsches." Derek flinched like I'd slapped him. "They want privacy, exclusivity, a place where they can discuss 7-figure purchases without having to explain themselves to people who think a $100,000 car is expensive." Tom stepped forward, his voice professionally polite but carrying an undertone of steel. "Tell you what, Derek. Since family is so important to you, I'll personally expedite your application review." Derek's face flickered with desperate hope, like a drowning man spotting a life preserver. "Unfortunately," Tom continued, his tone shifting to match the finality of a judge's gavel, "after reviewing your character references and witnessing your behavior tonight, I'm afraid you don't meet our community standards. The network requires members who demonstrate respect for craftsmanship and authentic passion for automotive culture, regardless of someone's background." The hope died in Derek's eyes like a candle being snuffed out. "Application denied, permanently." And just like that, Derek Thompson, the man who mocked the oil on Tom's hands, wasn't even worthy to park in our circle. Emma burst into tears at the head table, whether from shock, embarrassment, or the realization that her wedding had just become a viral video, I couldn't tell. Several relatives had started frantically Googling our names on their phones, their faces cycling through disbelief and grudging amazement as the search results confirmed everything we'd said. "But don't worry," I added sweetly, delivering the final blow with surgical precision. "I heard there's a Honda Civic enthusiast group on Facebook that might be more your speed. No application required." The laughter that followed wasn't directed at us this time. Dad found his voice first, his businessman's instincts finally kicking in as he tried to salvage some dignity from the wreckage. "Sophia, honey, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding, Dad." I picked up my purse, Tom's hand finding mine naturally. "Just 3 years of you underestimating your daughter because she chose love over your definition of success." Mom reached toward me desperately, her perfectly manicured nails catching the light. "We didn't know." "You didn't want to know," I said, my voice softer now but no less firm. "You were so busy being embarrassed by what you thought I was doing that you never bothered to ask what I was actually building." I looked around the table at their stricken faces. Derek slumped in his chair like a broken puppet, Dad's silver hair disheveled from running his hands through it. Mom's perfect makeup streaked with tears of realization. "Real success isn't about impressing people at wedding receptions," I said, addressing the room but speaking directly to the family that had spent 3 years trying to diminish me. "It's about building something meaningful with someone who sees your worth even when no one else does." 6 months later, Derek still brings up that night at every family gathering, not to gloat, but to apologize. The video of his humiliation has been viewed over 2 million times on TikTok for hidden success. He started therapy and, somewhat ironically, has become one of our most vocal advocates. Dad now introduces Tom as his brilliant future son-in-law to anyone who'll listen, boring colleagues with detailed explanations of Tom's restoration techniques and our business model. He's also quietly invested $2 million in our Series B round, an apology that came with compound interest. Mom has completely rewritten history, telling her friends that she always knew Sophia was destined for greatness and that she encouraged the relationship from the beginning. Patricia's daughter Sarah, the lawyer with the BMW, recently asked for an introduction to our network after inheriting her grandfather's vintage Jaguar collection. The private luxury car owner network hit $50 million in valuation last month. We're expanding to include vintage motorcycle enthusiasts, private jet owners, and luxury yacht collectors. Our waiting list has grown to over 100,000 applications, each one carefully reviewed by our team. Derek is still on that waiting list. Not permanently banned, we're not cruel, but definitely not prioritized. His new application essay shows genuine growth, focusing on automotive craftsmanship rather than social climbing. Maybe someday he'll understand that respect is earned through character, not purchased with status symbols. Emma sends us Christmas cards now, always with a handwritten note thanking us for the most memorable wedding reception ever. Her marriage is thriving, partly because she learned that night that authentic relationships matter more than perfect appearances. But the real victory wasn't the money or the recognition or even the satisfying justice of watching my family's assumptions crumble. It was learning that your worth isn't determined by other people's limited imagination. True success is building a life so authentic that you never have to pretend to be smaller than you are. Sometimes the person in coveralls is the one holding quiet power, and the right people will always see your worth, no matter what you're wearing. The most expensive things in life aren't bought with money. They're earned with character, built with dedication, and shared with people who love you for who you really are. And character, unlike status symbols, can never be taken away. It can only grow stronger under pressure, like carbon becoming diamond in the depths of the earth. The network Tom and I built connects people across continents, but the most important connection we ever made was with each other. In a world obsessed with appearances, we chose substance. In a family that valued status, we chose love. That choice made us millionaires, but more importantly, it made us unbreakable.